welcome back. You're still watching Nile Cruise, and now it's time to be hosting a very special guest. Born as Gabriel Michael and also known as Gabi Toma, Gabriel received his bachelor degree in architecture from Cairo in 1980, his master's degree from Ohio State University in 1982, and his membership in the American Institute of Architects in 1990. Since his return to Egypt in 1997, he has pursued his lifelong interest in preserving the historical architecture and cultural heritage of Egypt, conservation of the environment, and the wildlife of Egypt. Today we're hosting the man himself, Gabi Toma. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
One of the most interesting things that one can talk about is the wildlife and the nature in general, especially here when it comes to Egypt.
Yes.
But first I want to understand the term eco-architecture.
Yes.
Because maybe this is going to be one of our, it is something new for some of us because we know the ecotourism, we know the ecology system, but the eco-architecture, what is it about?
Like you know, Egypt, 15% of Egypt now is protected areas. And these protected areas include many landscapes and a lot of wildlife, whether it was terrestrial or marine. And each protected area has a different landscape. And the architecture that you're supposed to build there for the visitors and for the protection has to be special, that it would not destroy the place, and to respect the nature and the wildlife, and not to have a negative impact on the wildlife. So the eco-architecture is built to mimic nature, not to compete with nature. Like if I have an area of sand dunes or granite mountains, or each landscape has a different set of what we call architectural vocabulary. And this vocabulary includes the organic materials that you will build with. You're supposed to not have a lot of footprint. Your building is supposed to not compete with nature, while you manage the area. Manage the area by mean you have lots of visitors coming. So to manage these visitors so they would not adversely impact the landscape, yet they will enjoy it, you have to do a management plan. And one of the management components is the architecture. The buildings could destroy, and the building operations themselves could destroy nature. So eco-architecture specializes in making preserving the setting where the building would be, example, from organic, let's say from rocks, or from earth, or from mud bricks. The natural ventilation should be natural ventilation.
But Gabi, when did you develop such an interest, or maybe the eco-architecture is new to Egypt, or is it not?
Well, I would say new, let's say maybe 10, 12 years.
Mm-hmm. Relatively new.
Relatively new, yes. And we managed to do several park infrastructure facilities with sound eco-architecture, such as in Wadi al-Hitan World Heritage Site, which is now visited by hundreds of thousands, St. Catherine, Wadi Gemal National Park. All these areas, we have some good examples, but of course they need to be further developed and further enhanced, and spread more than what it is now.
Well, I know that you designed and constructed several national parks here in Egypt. So I will take from the last sentence that you have mentioned, how can we work on our national parks? Because I believe it doesn't exist elsewhere. We can work on it. It can be something very important, because nowadays the whole world is talking about ecosystem in everything, and the footprint, and looking for healthy life.
Let's say, for example, Wadi al-Hitan. Wadi al-Hitan is an area within Wadi al-Rayyan protected area by Fayoum, about 200 kilometers from Cairo. And this area, maybe 40 million years ago, it was desert, it was ocean. It was under the sea. So you go in the desert now and you find these ancient whales, fossils, that maybe 30 meters long. And it became a World Heritage Site because these are very unique fossils. Nowhere else like that in the world, preserved in such conditions. And it helps answer important questions about the evolution of life on Earth. So many people visit the sites, and as you know, there's so many fossils. So to manage visitors, we had to build facilities, ticket stations, restaurants, ranger outposts, different facilities.
So what about the criteria that you take or put into consideration upon creating or designing such facilities?
The criteria, first of all, is to be not to disturb the natural setting. You don't go there and try to build a beautiful building. Let's say we have many architectural styles. We have Coptic, we have Islamic, we have Pharaonic. All these styles you could build in other places, but in nature you have to come up with your own vocabulary, which you get from the shapes of the mountains, the colors, the textures, and you do them in such a way that it doesn't hurt the scene. And you, of course you make different zones of protection. In some areas you'll have more facilities, other areas you have very quiet facilities. And in Wadi al-Hitan I use something called eco-mimicry. Mimicry means you mimic nature.
Maybe replicate
you mimic
the
shapes of the rocks. You mimic the texture, the colors. So when you go there, you don't find a building that disturbs the site.
Nothing odd.
Nothing odd. It actually, I mean, nothing is more important than nature or better, no matter how good you are as an architect. You do not try to compete with nature. Maybe you try to enhance it and you try to preserve it. And it was quite successful and very well received by visitors in Wadi al-Hitan.
Well, of course, you have performed many documentaries about Egypt and about the national parks in Egypt, like, for example, A Tale from the Desert Sea and Travels Across the Sands, and many others. Desert, just as you're talking right now. How do you select the title of your documentaries, or how do you select the places you want to talk about?
Okay, well, making documentary films is a very special industry. And when you have a film, let's say you have to produce it in 3 months, okay? You cannot go and do it in 3 months unless you have a vocabulary or a database of different scenes, gazelles, different marine creatures, wildlife, and you might not find this within 3 months. So I go on my own, because this is also my hobby. It's not just my work, it's mainly my hobby. So I go and collect this footage of different areas, and I keep in stock for whatever the documentary film is needed. And in conjunction with the Egyptian Environmental Affairs Agency and the Nature Conservation Sector, they need and other like UNDP and Italian Corporation, they every now and then they want to produce a film out of the protected area. And so I have my homework done already, and I just come in and fill in the parts to make a film. And I do the photography, the directing, and writing the script, and the editing. So I do most of it. It's not like a big setup you have here, because you climb mountains and you spend nights in the desert, and you have to be quiet. You can't go with 4 or 10 people. So it's basically a one-man sort of film. Of course, you have other consultants. You have people that make music. You have people that help enhance the script, technical consultants. So it's actually very enjoyable for me.
But Gabby, you have a photographic database of about 25,000 photographs.
Yeah, that was a few years ago. Now they're like 3 times as much, yeah.
Yeah, so how much time did it take you to compile such photographs?
Well, it took me
how hard was it
maybe about 15 to 20 years. Because
from all across Egypt, right?
Pardon?
From all across Egypt, or was it
all across Egypt?
From outside of Egypt as well?
All across the protected areas of Egypt, which, as I mentioned, constitute 15% of the country. It's bigger than many countries. If you add them up, 150,000 square kilometers is bigger than many countries. So I always travel, not even for a job. I just travel by myself and collect these pictures. I do a lot of research, and this is something that I love to do. And of course I organize these pictures very well. So that way, when I need something, I can find it within the maze of these photographs.
Also, you started for the first time a channel, history channel on the YouTube, right?
Yes, yes.
Titled Egypt's Wilderness.
Yes.
Tell us more about it.
Yes, you know, I made about 25 films about nature, not only nature, but some culture, like the Mosque of Mitulon, like Karnak. I do animations also, where you can fly through these, the ancient city of Alexandria, and I've done so many films. But these films sometimes are very limited in their distribution. They may be printed on a few DVDs, and it doesn't really reach the public. My goal is really to make a National Geographic Egypt, but maybe there is not the resources at this time. So I collected my films and put them for free. They're not only my films, by the way, they're also for they also with the help of the Egyptian Environmental Affairs Agency and many other sponsors. But we put them on a channel, so that way now we have over 30,000. Okay, 30,000 might not, they need to be more than that.
But at least about the audience?
Pardon?
30,000 views?
Viewers. Views, yes. They need to be a lot more, but that's a lot better than, you know, printing 200 DVDs here and there, and they are growing very much. So until we have that National Geographic Egypt, I'll have my own poor man's channel, like they say.
So what about the upcoming plans, maybe?
The upcoming plans?
Yours, yes.
I think the right now plans, the Egyptian Environmental Affairs Agency, along with the UNDP and the Italian Corporation, they have a plan to do another museum, the first of its kind in the world, in Wadi al-Hitan, which will be partially underground, and it will host some very unique features which would add a lot to this destination. Also just finished working on a film called Soaring Legends. You will also find it on my YouTube channel. And it follows the migration routes through Egypt of the birds, because Egypt is blessed with so many environments, so many landscapes. If you look at some of my publications here, I have so many publications, but the most questions that I get is this in Egypt? Okay? Yes, there is all that is in Egypt. Among the things that I was talking about in Egypt are the birds. We have a major flyway coming from Eurasia, the grounds of the birds, the breeding grounds in Eurasia, Europe and Asia, to their wintering grounds in Europe. And they all pass through Egypt, about 1.5 million birds. And it's a great spectacle, okay? So we're doing a film about that, was just finished. And it is another added value to Egypt to add to its ecotourism, bird watching. I mean, in England you have 10 million bird watchers, just one market, one country. So if you manage to capitalize on that and get sound ecotourism, that does not hurt the environment, that helps the local people, that gives livelihoods, that would be a great advantage.
You moved across the country from one place to the other, so you know all about the national parks in Egypt. Well, there are some national parks that are under the spot, very famous, like Ras Muhammad, for example, Wadi Hitan, Wadi Gimal, Wadi Rayyan. But of course, there are certain places that no one knows anything about it. Can you tell us something about any of these places that we must know about it, but we don't know anything about it?
Yes. Well, I have a lot of my photos that I give to your director. Maybe he would play them at the same time. But we have so many different landscapes and so many different habitats, from high mountains like St. Catherine with snow on it in winter, to coral reefs in the Red Sea. And each protected area is selected to protect a certain landscape. It's not done haphazardly. Let's say the North Coast. The North Coast has a very unique character in flora, okay? So they have Umayyad and Saloum to provide this part, and it's famous for flora. We have Jabal Alba in the south by Sudan. It's the most biodiverse area, protected area in the country as far as wildlife, as fauna and flora. incredible scenery, high mountains, lush, whereas you would think you're in Africa somewhere. If you go to Wadi Sanur cave, it's caves, incredible caves under the ground. So they're all very diverse.
We are not promoting for this. Why?
Pardon?
Why aren't we promoting for this?